Donald Trump could be poised to take the first step towards unraveling the nuclear deal with Iran by declaring Iran has not complied with it. The president, who has described the deal as horrible, has already signaled his intention to hold Iran non-compliant next month. By law, Iran's compliance with the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA) is reviewed every 90 days, after which the State Department can either recertify Iran's compliance to the U.S. Congress or not. If the president sticks to his promise to decertify Iran, experts say this would at the very least tighten America's noose on Tehran or at worst, mark the beginning of the end of the JCPOA. President Trump's preference is clear. I think that Iran will be non-compliant. I think they're taking advantage of this country, and I do not expect that they will be compliant, he said 2 weeks ago, and then again a few days ago while golfing in New Jersey. For the last 180 days, 2 review cycles, the Trump administration has followed the recommendation of Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and senior diplomats and certified that Iran is indeed keeping to the terms of the nuclear deal. The balance that has been in place since 2015 has thus been preserved. But Mr. Trump's comments, coupled with a review currently underway by the more hawkish officials at the White House, is now moving towards telling Congress Iran has broken the terms of the deal. Technically, this gives the U.S. Congress the choice of reimposing sanctions targeting Iran's nuclear activities, which were suspended under JCPOA. It would then be up to the Joint Commission overseeing the implementation of the agreement in Vienna, to decide if the U.S. is in violation of the deal for acting unilaterally and reimposing sanctions, sending Iran a dead cat. In 1991, the then Secretary of State James Baker came up with the dead cat strategy, placing a metaphorical dead cat on the doorstep of a recalcitrant party as a way of shaming them into cooperation. Decertifying Iran borrows from that strategy. Mark Dubowitz, executive director of the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, told The National. In fact, decertification would be the dead cat, enabling Mr. Trump to undercut the Iranian regime's false claims of nuclear innocence by highlighting examples of Iranian non-compliance with the nuclear deal. He could then continue the nuclear deal while rolling out a much more comprehensive Iran policy that targets the nature and behavior of the Iranian regime. Read more. Easier said than done, says Aaron David Miller, Vice President for New Initiatives at the Woodrow Wilson Center, who served in 6 administrations, both Republican and Democrat, over 12 years. I can't imagine that this agreement is going to survive its full term 15 years, he said. Mr. Trump has no stake in this nuclear deal. His administration didn't negotiate it. The president believes it's one of the worst agreements, only exceeded by the Paris Agreement and TPP Trans-Pacific Partnership. Mr. Trump also withdrew from those. Even if you decertify but don't walk away from agreement, this is on a downward trajectory, Mr. Miller insisted. But for Mr. Dubowitz, decertifying the deal should be combined with a U.S. willingness to sit down and negotiate a follow-on agreement with Iran that addresses the current deal's fatal flaws. Iran cannot be allowed, like North Korea was, to take patient pathways to nuclear weapons and intercontinental ballistic missiles, regional behavior. But even if Mr. Trump declares Iran to be non-compliant, there is still no indication that the U.S. administration has a strategy to tackle Tehran's regional behavior. With US-Iran tensions on the rise, could disrupting the nuclear agreement trigger confrontation? Mr. Dubowitz acknowledges the atmosphere is more highly charged. The Iranian regime harassed the U.S. Navy in the Gulf this week, fired long-range ballistic missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead, and continues development of an intercontinental ballistic missile, he said. Iran is also building up missile production facilities along with Hezbollah in Lebanon, establishing another front against Israel on the Syrian border, and attempting to connect a land bridge between Iran and the Mediterranean through Iraq and Syria into Lebanon. Such aggressive and provocative behavior by Iran risked drawing the U.S. into military confrontation, he added. Mr. Dubowitz says a new, broad strategy is needed to counter Tehran's activities across the Levant and the GCC. But Mr. Miller said the Trump administration prefers the status quo when it comes to the Middle East. In Yemen, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and the Gulf, the Trump policy has not differed much from Barack Obama's. However, once the U.S. sheds the nuclear agreement, Washington could become more ambitious.